had a breakthrough realizing with self-trust that I can learn to trust myself more once I acknowledge that I am going to make mistakes and I am going to show up imperfectly. And that's okay. Let's say I make a business decision and it just fails horribly. Like, I still will be okay. I'll still be carried. And that kind of just softens it a little bit. And now I'm like, yeah, I have this idea. I'm going to go for it. And maybe I can just trust that because, yes, maybe it won't be still happening for me in 5 years, but it's okay because I can still trust myself that I'm being, kind of led into that next direction.
Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back, dear listener. Today's guest is someone whose work radiates beauty, intention, and a deep reverence for the natural world, and whose journey as a creative and entrepreneur is a powerful testament to the role self-trust plays in bringing a vision to life. Angela Monaco is a Philadelphia-based jewelry designer and the founder of Angela Monaco Jewelry, a fine jewelry brand and storefront that centers intuition, spirituality, creativity, and connection. Through handcrafted talismans made of gold, silver, and earth-toned gems, Angela's pieces tell stories, both ancient and personal. They're more than jewelry, they're invitations to connect more deeply with yourself and the world around you. In this conversation, Angela shares how she built her business from the ground up, how she continues to navigate the unknown with courage and creativity, and how she's learned to trust her own instincts along the way, even when she didn't have all the answers. We talk about the illusion that anyone has it all figured out, and the creative power of curiosity and what it really means to follow your own path. If you're someone who struggles with perfectionism, comparison, or feeling like you're not ready yet, this episode will remind you that no one starts out knowing what they're doing, and that's exactly where the magic begins. Let's get into it. Angela, I'm so happy to see you. It's really fun to see you in a new context online and not in person, although it's much better in person. But thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I love talking to you in any capacity I get. So I'm honored to be here.
Me too. I feel that way too. For those who haven't been as fortunate as myself to meet you in person and get to know you, and for those who also might not yet know you from the work that you do, could you share with this audience what it is that you do and who your work is for?
Sure. Yeah. So people mostly know me as a jewelry designer. I do own a company called Angela Monaco Jewelry, and I'm a lifelong jewelry professional and lover of stones and crystals. And so, yeah, I think my work is, definitely about a lot more than, creating beautiful objects that are, meaningful in and of itself. But, I think I really serve a person that is, has like an open mind, is, working on even opening their heart, wanting to connect, wanting to share vulnerabilities, laughter, joy, being silly. A lot of our clients we just have a good time. Our staff. And yeah, we actually do have a retail shop in Philadelphia. And so, we get to like connect with a lot of our clients and customers, like, face to face, which is really beautiful. And yeah, I definitely attract people, I think of all walks, but I think the one thing that is in common with all of them is that they want to connect and we want to have fun.
And that makes so much sense because I experience you as such like a connecting person, and as a fun person. Um, and you and I have met each other through this entrepreneurial group. We have a coach in common, and so I've gotten to know you through that, and I've gotten to know bits and pieces of your story, but I actually don't know the story of what it is that led you to the work that you do. And I'd love for listeners to get to hear about that.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm excited to share with you too. And yeah, my journey is not, it hasn't been like a lot of people's, whereas I found this calling to create, jewelry and be an artist, since I was a little kid and pursued it. I think a lot of people's story is maybe they grew up, being a creative and maybe taking a break and, joining the workforce. But I really have done this since I was a little child. I always joke that but I'm not joking, is that like I was the kid, instead of the lemonade stand, I was like selling jewelry when I was 7. And maybe I was giving it away, but I was, I thought of myself as a little hustler. And I was really kind of like scrappy and, kind of always coming up with a new creative project and, a little business idea. I feel like that's how I played. I played business growing up. And I also, did kind of help support myself, as a child growing up. And I also realized in my adulthood that is, maybe also not normal. And so I've been processing a lot of that and kind of, coming into, just realization of like what that means and like my work style and like, achievements and the energy around that. And, but I really have always made jewelry. I was, in college, the few restaurant jobs I had, I was always making jewelry on the side. And I'm just grateful that people always wanted it. Even back in the day, when I look back at those pictures, I'm like, I can't believe you guys were wearing this stuff. But they liked it. That was the style back then. I started off wire wrapping crystals. And I mean, when I was a kid, it was beads, and then it was the hemp necklace era. And then it turned into the wire wrapping of crystals. And I've just always been so drawn to crystals. I grew up with my biological mom was like kind of witchy growing up. And so she would light candles for me, and I had a little rock collection, and I was just so drawn to them. And so naturally, I started making jewelry with them. And I really have just never stopped. And I have actually done this, in some capacity, supporting myself as a career, since I was 20 years old. So yeah. Those restaurant jobs only lasted so long. And yeah, I've just kind of continued, and I tried to do the art school thing, and I actually had some really awesome teachers. But the traditional schooling wasn't really for me. And so I've kind of just kept going in the different ways.
And, you said earlier that it's not only about beautiful objects, which is, I mean, that's just so obvious to me. Even just looking at your work, that's obvious to me, but also hearing what you talk about and how you talk about things. What did jewelry or doing this type of creative work, what has it meant to you? And has it meant different things at different points in your life, like, in childhood versus today versus sometime in between there?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Yeah, it continues to evolve. I think at first it was like a means of survival, which I'm just now kind of, processing and realizing. And then it was as it developed into me meeting so many friends from doing this, like, there for many years, I was out, I always say like out on the streets, like schlepping, the big tents, the easy ups, and doing this craft festival and that craft festival. And, even going across the entire country, almost like on tour.
Yeah.
And it became really about meeting people, meeting kind of like my chosen family, meeting other artists like me that were out there, like trying to put themselves out into the world over and over again, only to be sometimes taken down by a storm, a literal storm.
Yeah.
And I actually I don't know which came first. I guess me being creative came first, but I always had a really great love for music. And I spent many years like following bands around, like selling my jewelry. Sometimes like legit vending, like paying for like a vending booth at like a big festival like Bonnaroo or something like that, which is like completely organized and quite the investment to vend at, but then also doing it in my more scrappy ways and as it developed. And even that, I look back and I realized like it really was about the friendships I was building, and of course the music was amazing as well. But even my love for the music, it was about this like feeling of like this like chosen family being found. And it really continues. Like one of my favorite things is going to like, let's say a craft fair or walking into a small business and getting to meet the owner, getting to meet the maker, and then supporting them and making a friend. And, I'm a Taurus. I'm a lover of objects. I'm a lover of a good vintage store. And so I love to also be the one to support and create relationships through that. And I think now, now having, in the last like year or so, especially with this, kind of like business cohort we're part of, I'm really stepping into seeing myself as like a CEO. It's almost still hard to say.
Yeah.
I'm like, I own a company. Whoa, weird. And so now it's about so much more, right? It's about providing good jobs. It's about me continuing to improve my leadership skills and push through really hard things that I literally don't feel like I know what I'm doing half the time, as you see in some of my some of my shares in our training. So, but that is, I think business is like a platform, and being an artist is a platform for just continuing to grow and evolve as a person. And it's almost like the accelerated learning of the human condition. It's kind of how I see it.
Totally. That's just the perfect lead in to where I want to go further next in this conversation. The theme of this podcast is how to trust yourself. It's all about self-trust and how, like, what even is that and how do we develop that? And you said some of the time I don't even know what I'm doing, which I mean, I completely relate to. And I know every human being relates to that, right? But there's so many, because of what you do and how you do it, there are so many ways in which you are your own authority. I mean, that is true in creative work. And, from what you've shared, it sounds like to an extent anyway, you're a self-taught creative. So finding your own path as a creative, finding your own path as a business person, and you lead a robust team. You're a leader. You haven't just followed one single path in your business. There's a lot of different things I know that you do in your space besides selling jewelry. What is self-trust to you? And like, what is your journey with it look like at the moment?
Yeah, this is a perfect topic for me, and something I'm so glad that we waited until now to do this podcast, because I actually did just move through a big learning and trusting of myself. But of course, it took me being in a lot of emotional and spiritual pain to get there, like most things in life. And yeah, I think for a long time, I actually had an inner dialogue that was telling me that I can't trust myself. And, it was kind of playing on repeat. And, sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that or even admit that. And I realized recently that the reason I was having a hard time trusting myself, because even though I appear uh, out to the outward world, I appear confident, I appear like I know what I want, and I appear, I don't know, like a kind of, we'll just call it a strong personality. I have so much self doubt. My inner dialogue is, quite critical. A lot of the time, not just like sometimes, like actually like a majority of the time. And I do a lot of work to then step out in the world and try to show up and love myself. And but it is such a journey. And I had a breakthrough the other day. I was listening to like a podcast or one of the various books I'm reading about, I don't know, I'm always reading something to do with spirituality and self-development and business. And but I had a breakthrough realizing with self-trust that I can learn to trust myself more once I, acknowledge that I am going to make mistakes and I am going to show up imperfectly. And that's okay, because when it comes down to it, I know that I'm trying my best. I really try. And I have great people in my life and I use them as a sounding board. So not only am I trying my best, but I'm reaching out to others and I'm asking them, I'm getting feedback from them. And I'm basically, I'm going to be okay no matter what, even if I make a bad mistake, let's say I, make a business decision and it just fails horribly. Like I still will be okay. I'll still be carried. And that kind of just softens it a little bit. And now I'm like, yeah, I have this idea. I'm going to go for it. And maybe I can just trust that because, yes, maybe it won't end up I don't really believe in like 5-year plans and stuff like that, but maybe it won't be still happening for me in 5 years, but it's okay because I can still trust myself that I'm being, kind of led into that next direction. And yeah.
Yeah. I found myself myself physically responding to what you were just saying when you said, like, even if I make a bad mistake, like I can keep going. I can take the next step. I'll be okay. And I felt this little like loosening up in my own body. And what came to me was that, when I am feeling tense or fearful, which happens like a million times throughout the day, it's a state that comes and goes. When I'm feeling tense or fearful and my nervous system is in that tense, fearful state, part of what goes with that is that my thinking gets very black and white and it's very success or failure and all or nothing. And if I make a mistake, I can't recover from that. Whereas when I'm in a more relaxed state, which my body just moved into hearing you talk, like it's like that suggestion, that idea relaxed my body. And then when my body's more relaxed, it's also my brain is more resourceful and more open to possibility. And that's not the state that I just live in consistently. So I've got all these tricks and tools and practices to bring myself back to that. And I'm curious for you, how do you come back to that resourceful place? What are the things, whether they're, codified practices or just little, snippets throughout your day?
Yeah. Great question. And I just want to say it's comforting to hear you say that because I see you as someone that wouldn't maybe go into those states, which is just so
And I
silly
see
'cause we
you that
all
way
do.
too.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing, right?
We all do. Yeah. And I really relate to like the extreme thinking. And yeah, sometimes it's honestly really hard to get myself out of those states. Sometimes, as we've been both collectively learning about the nervous system, sometimes it takes me, like, I know that moving my body really helps me. I tend to get frozen. I forget which one that is. I tend to go into the like frozen deer state. I'm actually forgetting which part of the nervous system that is now. But in that case, it's then phoning a friend.
Yeah.
And usually, sometimes I need to like phone a friend that like does know about maybe the thing I'm going through, the particular business thing or the particular mental health thing. And then sometimes you just have, just such good friends that you can talk to about anything, which is such a blessing. And I am super grateful to have that in my circle here in Philadelphia and, beyond. And so that's kind of like the first thing. Once I can get myself, and I remember calling a friend, maybe it was 6 months ago, and I was just, I was frozen. I couldn't even put my clothes on to go outside. But she helped walk me through, kind of bring me down to the ground. Now the yoga pants are on. Now I got my shoes on, and I'm walking, and I'm talking with her. And I can't even tell you the difference in how by the end of it, I'm laughing, I'm inspired, and it really is that drastic for me. But yeah, talking to a friend, moving my body. I love yoga, and I love learning. So a lot of times listening to beautiful podcasts like yours really, uplifts me, makes me feel better. Listening to audiobooks, anything where I feel like I'm relating to others and that I'm just, not alone and that other people feel the same way, especially, in the world. I think always in the world, but, we're living through intense times here recently. And so it's like really leaning on other people that, understand and won't judge me, and I feel safe around.
It never ceases to be so interesting to me that whenever I get into a stuck feeling place, I think that I need a solution, and 99.9 times out of 100, what I actually need is connection.
Mm-hmm.
And
Really relate to that. Yeah. My brain wants to figure it out. It's like, oh, well, I'll move this over here, then we'll do that. And then but what happens if that doesn't work out? And then, oh, but it's okay, I'll move this over here. And there's no figuring it out in those moments. It's only calming yourself, nourishing yourself with food, water, connecting with people. And then, the solutions come, usually without any effort. The good ones, the good solutions, the real ones for you, will come without much effort.
It's like that kind of almost cliche thing about the creative process. If you're at your desk, just like trying to squeeze creativity out of a stone, it won't come. But when you get up and go to take a shower, it just comes to you with no effort.
Yeah, I actually learned recently, like, I'm very much like into astrology and human design and those, learning about those and following along the transits really helps me because I'm like, oh, that transit's happening. Okay, yeah, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. And then I also feel like I'm able to take that information and maybe like help provide calmness for someone else or understanding of why things feel, why, the last 6 weeks when we've had like 2 retrogrades in Venus and in Mercury. And everyone hears about Mercury retrograde because it happens 4 times a year. But yeah, paying attention to it helps. My computer screen's broken right now. And it's like, yes, this did happen in Mercury retrograde. And kind of just following that along. But one of the things I learned in my human design is that I'm a manifesting generator and is that I am supposed to wait to respond to things. So basically not seeking. So let's say I set an intention. This is a true thing. I set an intention that I wanted to start using my voice more. Yeah. And that I wanted to share, just like share more of me. And it's about more than the jewelry and the retail shop. And that's also important too. But I set this intention that I really wanted to put myself out there and be seen and be heard. And then you asked me to do this podcast. How funny I actually did want to ask you, but I didn't
know that.
Yeah, I did it. I don't think I told you this. I didn't ask, and it's okay to ask as well. But waiting to respond is something I learned from my energy type, and everyone's energy type is different. Yeah. But waiting to respond is something important for me. So I know that whenever I'm even, let's say I'm hiring for a position, or I know I want to do some big thing, I know I want to hire a coach. I'm not so much, it's okay to do the research and things, but I kind of know the feeling when it comes to me and that I can respond to it.
Yes, I relate to that actually. And I often find myself pushing and squeezing and trying to force things and like, why isn't this working? And it's just like, I got to go take that shower. I got to release the grip. Um and you spoke about like reaching out to a friend being an important tool, like reaching out for connection, being reminded that you're not alone. I find that to be a really important tool for me as well. Oftentimes I feel resistant to it. Like I know it would help me to reach out to a friend, but it's like, I don't want to really like reveal these messy feelings that I'm having. Or what if it's a burden on them? Or what if I feel too vulnerable? Um, and yet it's always so helpful once I do it. And I also hear people say to me, but I don't like, there is no one I can reach out to, or I don't have a friend that I can share with like that. And I don't know if you've like thought about like how have you made friends that you can share with vulnerably?
Yeah. Well, one of the, I'll share something vulnerably, because that is my intention. I did not, I had an interesting and non-traditional childhood. Most of us did in some ways. Mine was particularly interesting. And, there's a lot of times where I do not feel like I have, a biological family. And, actually grew up living in multiple different households, having multiple different sets of foster brothers and sisters, different parents. And so the beauty of all of that is I'm very adaptable to lots of different situations and lots of different people. And I can see, I can understand, and this also might be my Gemini rising sign, the duality of things. I can see how one can feel a certain way about something. I can look at their point of view, and I also have like a yearning to connect. And sometimes it can be, I have to be careful with like the boundaries of that and like which people is it safe to connect with in different ways. But I think I also am I'm a people lover. I think people are really interesting. I originally wanted to go to school to be a psychologist, and um, then did art instead and in entrepreneurship. But I find people really fascinating. And, I've had a really interesting journey, childhood into young adulthood, into now almost, I'm turning 40 next month. And I've had to do a lot of, self work on myself internally and then also in groups. And I've honestly met a lot of my best friends through groups, through spiritual, personal development groups, being a person that's in recovery. I just can't even tell you how many friends I meet each week. And then, of course, as I've grown into, really valuing myself or identifying as an entrepreneur and then showing up in these entrepreneurial spaces, now I'm meeting whole new sets of friends that like I really can connect with on these other levels too. But yeah, I just love people. And I would say like, if someone is feeling that way, sounds cliche, but, finding a hobby. So it's something as simple as, joining, if you like yoga, if you like to run, taking if you're running down at the park or on the river, and, taking a shot at talking with someone, making a conversation like, oh, do you run down here often? I'm not a runner, but people out there run. At yoga. And because, everything's so fast paced, I actually notice at yoga, people don't really stop to talk to each other. I often have to kind of like ask people like, oh, I try to connect with them like, oh, don't you love this teacher? And, sometimes people are willing to open up, but sometimes you really have to put yourself out there and kind of be the first one, because I think a lot of people walk around not wanting to bother each other, especially on the East Coast.
Totally.
They're like, oh, I don't want to bother them. They're in their zone. But you never know whose day you're going to make by just striking up a conversation at a park.
Yeah. And what I got from what you were sharing and what my experience has been is that in order, like if you want to experience the vulnerability of connection, you kind of can't protect yourself until that safety arrives. You sort of have to take a chance on being vulnerable first. And sometimes we're going to get hurt in, little ways or big ways. Sometimes it just simply won't be reciprocated, or sometimes it'll turn out that person wasn't a good fit. But there's sort of no way to establish connection without vulnerability. And whether it's the vulnerability of being curious, like open to being curious, or the vulnerability of sharing something of yourself, it's that vulnerability is what leads to the connection.
Yeah, I really feel that.
Um, I would love to ask, speaking of vulnerability, um, and thank you so much for sharing vulnerably with me and with this audience. It's such a gift. It is so connecting. Um, I'd love to ask, what is an area of your business or your life or whatever area you'd like to talk about where you've recently been grappling with how to trust yourself, or maybe you're currently grappling with how to trust yourself, and how are you moving through it?
Yeah. Well, perfect timing because I sure am. I mean, I'm luckily this week I feel more levity around all of my grapplingness. But boy, that really has been the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks of my life. And I just want to say again that I'm grateful that I'm not on the other side of it, because it will pop up again, but I just feel a little bit more trust for myself, a little bit more levity, a little more patience. But currently I am in a stage in my life and career where I'm feeling like, well, wait, why am I doing this? Why
Mm,
am I doing all of this? Because
yeah,
some days and weeks, and it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot to manage, and
yeah,
sometimes my creativity suffers from the amount that it takes, the type of work it takes to be running a company versus what I really want to be doing, which is like playing in the dirt and playing with rocks,
yeah.
making a mess with my art. And yeah, I am actively stepping into new territory. And one of those things is, I want to start sharing my voice. I want to write a book someday.
Yes,
And I'm
amazing.
finally okay to say that without saying, but I'm not a writer. It's like, it doesn't matter. I have a story that I'm going to tell someday. And that book may take 5 years to write. It doesn't matter. But just knowing that
Yeah,
feels freeing, knowing that I'm seeing myself move towards a vision for my company that is rooted more, truly more in community and teaching. I love to teach. I'm a natural teacher, I've been told,
yeah,
and I love it. So it lights me up. And I have a vision of helping maybe like younger teens and different, underprivileged communities or living situations. Maybe, I'm very connected to the idea of helping like foster youth and, helping them learn like they can grow up and they can, be an entrepreneur, and they can, learn to make art or however they want to express themselves. And, that's a big project, right? And so there's the grappling is like, that's kind of like the big vision, being of true service with like my like the gifts that the universe gave me. Like, how can I give back? And I also know it really brings me joy too. So I believe in giving back, but I know it also, like, selfishly, it lights me up. It makes me, that's when I have fun, is when I'm able to help other people. And,
yes.
so it's like, but I love jewelry so much. I love jewelry so much. It's also so meaningful, making engagement rings for people. I mean, I'm honored to get the chance to, I can't sometimes believe that people are coming to me for this. It's like so special. And we have a company, we have a retail shop that we're running. So how to be able to, expand my vision and believe in it and trust it while also being like, but wait, there's this company that has to keep running. And like, can I do both? Or the third thing that I also want to do. And just really the other thing I want to say is that I really believe in the jewelry and the crystals and everything, the meaningful objects, something as simple as a candle. I really believe in like the importance and like the energetics of everything we do, of these objects, of setting an intention. Everything from before I eat this bowl of yogurt, can I set an intention that it's going to nourish me and provide me with some protein before this podcast? And with every single thing we do, and like setting up my company like that. And in that way, it can feel scary. Like I can, I even have a fear of like, well, will people not take me seriously then? I'm making their engagement rings if I start talking about, the energetics of it all. I'm going to be talking about the energetics of diamonds, this month in a positive way, natural diamonds, which get a lot of negative PR. And, how will that be received? How will it be received for me to, share more of my story? If I want to start sharing that maybe like some of my trials and tribulations of being a business owner, will people then trust me to make these important projects for them? So all the things, I'm always, a lot of it has to do with me grappling, and I really like that word a lot, with my bandwidth and like, what is too much? Like, what's too much? Can I have this vision and can it expand and it will take X amount of amazing employees and, this coach and this, and it be enough that my nervous system can handle it, where I still am getting enough rest, where I still have enough spaciousness for new things to evolve, for a relationship, for maybe a family, starting a family someday, that it's, it's a lot to hold.
It is a lot to hold. And a question that comes into my mind is like, can it be imperfect and still be enough? Like, can we hold ourselves and our bandwidth imperfectly and still have that be okay? Because in my experience, it always is so imperfect. And I'm looking for a new word that's not, because imperfect implies that there is a perfect to strive for, and there just isn't. But I felt so lit up hearing that you have this intention of using your voice more, of writing a book. I'm so excited to read it someday. And a theme that comes up in my work constantly, and it comes up on this podcast a lot, is this desire that so many, if not all of us, have to use our voice to be heard and seen. And many of us, I know I do, also have simultaneous fear and all these self-doubts and like, what's even the point of using my voice? What do I have to say? That kind of stuff. I'm curious for you. I don't even know, honestly, what my answer to this is. It's different on different days. Like, what is that desire to use our voice? Like, what is that all about, that human desire?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's about like just sharing to connect, like sharing more of myself for other people, for me to get to connect with others, for them to feel more connected. Maybe, some of the people that read the book are like, wow, I feel the same way as her. Wow, I went through that too. Oh my gosh, like anything from just people feeling more connected to themselves, through my own story or me sharing vulnerably that sometimes I feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. To, also just like practicing the muscle. I mean, I'm definitely a risk taker. I've heard that writing a book is one of the hardest things you can do. And I'm like, oh, let me try to do it then. So some of it's probably that. Actually, I never have thought about this, but my mom was a writer, and my mom actually
Wow.
got her graduate degree in creative writing, and that just all of a sudden came to me. I've never even thought about that. But I do come from a lineage of artists and creators, and so for me, it's like in my DNA to express myself, and I do. I think the biggest purpose of it is that I want to be as maximum service to as many people as I can. And I think a book is like actually a book, a podcast is the biggest way to do that.
That how you described that really lit me up, and I felt very alive listening to you. And my own answer to this question that came to me in this moment, partly from listening to you, is I think that desire to express ourselves and be known, and it also like, receive feedback and have this be an exchange. It's about like exchanging our energy with other people's energy, having a flow back and forth between us. That is what feeling alive is, I think. It just feels good when it's a good exchange.
Yeah. And it's all art. And that's what makes the world go round.
Yeah.
Creativity and expression. We all, wouldn't be connected like we are, even through the technology of the internet. It's like the expression and the connection to what people are expressing. So I just really believe in that, and I get so much out of. And I love reading. I'm always reading. I don't know, 5 books at once. That's my vibe.
Yeah, totally.
Now I'm just learning to love it and accept it. Before I was like trying to do away with that. And I'm like, you got to stop doing this. Read one book at a time. And now I'm like, you know what? I got different moods, different parts of the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're audiobooks, sometimes they're physical books before I go to bed, and that's okay.
Yeah. I love that. Like that's just my vibe, and that's okay. Um I feel like we get to learn so much about ourselves too through hearing other people's stories. There's never another person's story where I'm like, I didn't learn anything from that. It's always like, wow, I understand more about what being a human being is now. Um, so we're coming now to the final 3 questions of this conversation. Certainly not the final 3 questions of our ongoing conversations, but I would like to know if there's a soapbox message that you feel passionate about spreading through all the various work that you do and all the different forms that it takes. What would that soapbox message be?
Yeah, when I read this question ahead of time, I thought to myself, you are soapboxy sometimes.
Hmm.
I can have a soapbox moment, and I'm sure my the people that work with me would agree. It's hard for me to understand what that would be, but I just really believe, and I think I'm fearful of sounding, cliche, but I just really believe that anyone can do anything that they want to. And I think that's another reason I want to write a book. I want to share my story of how I got here. And because I think a lot of people have a viewpoint of entrepreneurs or artists, especially if you might have a podcast, you got a certain looking Instagram or following. We think we perceive that we know how others are doing, and we perceive that we think that they got there in a certain amount of ways. And I like the idea of debunking that and sharing truth. And so then I guess my other soapbox moment is that none of us know what we're doing. Like, if we're always choosing to expand our knowledge and expand our offerings, or, not just even in a business or creative sense, but when you're doing a new thing, like I want to take a hip hop class at this dance studio around the corner, and I'm going to have to let go. Even though I think I'm pretty good at dancing, I am not going to know how to do some of those moves. And so just knowing that but it's going to be great for me, right? It's going to be so healing for my soul. And just showing up and just knowing that, like, yeah, you feel like you don't know what you're doing because you're literally doing a new thing or a new level of a thing that you've never done before. And I've had so much healing in this, being part of these entrepreneurial spaces, especially when there's people in these groups that are way ahead of me in business, way ahead of me in revenue levels. And to see them have the same insecurities, literally the same issues. It's like we could all just basically be mirroring each other. Everyone's issue that we're presenting or whatever is the same. And to see that, it's just like, yeah, wow, this is the human experience. And if you're, willing to take a risk and go for something new, even if it doesn't end up being your thing in 5 years, it does help develop who you are. And so I just, encourage people to, take that step and realize that, we really all are so much more connected than people want to think. We're all so similar, and we're all, and we're all out here doing our best.
I just felt that so deeply. The way you said that just landed so deeply for me. And when you said this message, anyone can do anything that they want to, I mean, sure, we've heard those words before, but I heard them in a whole new way, hearing you say them. And I have so much admiration for you. You spoke earlier about like the way we perceive one another and the way we perceive ourselves, and thinking that everyone else has it all together. As you said, like no matter who we are or what our experience is, I think we all feel that. And I look at you and think, gosh, Angela runs a company and she leads teams. Like that's something I've never done before. I don't know if I could. It's so empowering to hear each other say, you know, what I'm doing may look some way on the outside, but I feel vulnerable and I don't always know what I'm doing. And yet I am able to do whatever it is that I'm doing with these fears, not because I don't have fears or doubts, but with those fears and doubts. And I personally find it so empowering to hear you say that.
Yeah, that's why I feel like you are just, such a good coach. And I don't know if you go by, if you do therapy work anymore, but I know you're, a prior therapist. And yeah, because you share that, you share that, like, yeah, you do have those same fears. And that's just what we all want. We all want to feel understood. And, there's that prayer, pray to understand than to be understood. But we do all want to be understood. We want to feel loved unconditionally, we want to feel like we're not alone, and we're not if we open up and share with each other.
Totally. Yeah. It's so funny, that thing. Like, I think you mentioned this earlier. Like, I, at many points, have had this fear of like, should I share this vulnerability? Are people going to trust me as a professional? And obviously, like, anytime, like, our business coach, for example, like anytime she's shared moments of, failure or self-doubt or whatever with us, I'm like, oh, it's such a relief. And also it builds so much trust too.
Yes, it really does.
Yeah. If there is a listener who's listening to our conversation right now and they're hearing you say, like, anyone can do anything that they want to, and you're sharing vulnerably of yourself, they're feeling inspired. They're feeling like, oh, maybe it is worth moving toward that dream that I have. But they're also feeling like, oh, I'm way at the beginning of it and it's so overwhelming and I don't know where to start and maybe I should just pull the covers over my head again. What words of encouragement would you give to that person?
I would say, yes, pull the covers over your head, take a nap, which is advice I need to hear often. It's like, yes, lay down. And just start, share it with someone that's safe, someone that is like a cheerleader energy that's going to be like, yeah, that's a great idea. And you are a good painter. And, let's see. I really believe in, like I am statements. And so, writing, I am an artist, like I am a painter. or I am a writer. And, and I am going to, journal for literally not even 5 minutes each morning. And some days I'm going to miss it. And that's okay. But, making just tiny little steps, creating that like devotion and kind of like, I like thinking of it as like a ritual space for that to develop, and, sharing it with people that are safe. Or if you're someone that doesn't want to share it, keeping it sacred and knowing that that's okay for you. And, and I mean, sometimes it's time to take a class. I love learning. I love being educated. Not in the traditional sense. I did not enjoy, a university setting, but I love, signing up for little, workshops like we did with your melt method, connecting with others like that, just any little thing that you can do to just kind of put one foot in front of the other. And, and then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh yeah, remember when I didn't think that this is for me, this is a real thing. Like, remember when I thought that I didn't know how to draw, even though I'm an artist, or I didn't write? My therapist would tell me to journal. Of course, she's like a somatic, she's always trying to get me to journal. And I would tell myself, but I just never do it. I never do it. And then I eventually switched that, and I do it now. I do it and I draw, and my doodles are getting really good and playful. And it's all about just the pen moving. And then you start to, with these little esteemable acts, you build self-esteem around it. And then one day you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I thought I wasn't a writer. Now I own it. I am a writer, and my book has come out.
I really went on a journey with you, the way that you talked that through just now. And it's so easy to forget that a lifetime path is made out of small steps, one by one. I don't know why that's so easy to forget or to resist, but it is. And having reminders like the one that you just gave is so important. Finally, where can folks find your work? Where can they follow along with your continually evolving path? And what, if anything, can they reach out for or find when they find your work?
Yeah, I would love to connect with anyone that got to hear this, that connected with me. I definitely am an Instagram gal. I have an Instagram at Angela Monaco Jewelry, and I'm on the other side of the DM, so it's literally me. So if you say hi on there, like, it will be me saying hi back. And let's see what else. Well, we have a storefront in Philadelphia. It's on the corner of 20th and Walnut in the Rittenhouse Square area. It's a really cute historic area of Philly. It's right next to Rittenhouse Park. It's definitely a great city to visit if people haven't visited. And if you DM me before you're on your way there, I might even be on the block. And then besides that, I am setting an intention to be an international gal, popping up, doing pop-ups all over the world. So I actually just did one at my friend Bunny Shapiro's shop in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And that was cool. Like bucket list, check, like international pop-up. It was so fun. I got to meet all these like goddesses of that area and put permanent jewelry on them. And so, yeah, if people want to have me as a guest, in their city, for a private party, I'm happy to travel. And and then just keep an eye out for news and updates, on our website. We have a really beautiful website. And if anyone is interested learning more about jewelry, crystals, or even engagement rings, our website is super informative and quite pretty.
Amazing. I cannot wait to make it down to Philadelphia and visit your shop in person. I love ogling it on Instagram.
You'll love it. I can take you to my favorite restaurant, and then I'll come up to Brooklyn to visit you as well.
Yes, Queens. I'm in Queens, but I really look forward to that. Angela, I'm just so glad that I know you, that like we got to meet each other through this group we're a part of, and that I get to know you and continue to get to know your work and your story. And thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing with me and with listeners here on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I love getting to know you, and I feel like we're going to be friends for a very long time. And I get to see you at the end of this month in person.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
It's such a big deal. It's such a big deal. It's amazing. Yeah. And yeah, I'm super grateful you had me on the podcast. I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you.
I did too. I'm so glad. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing, and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.